I think it's very, very common in the Muslim community that if you are queer, you are automatically just exiled from the community. People focus a lot more so on like the specifics of what's written in the Quran itself rather than taking like what the Quran is trying to teach people. We can exist, and we can exist in happiness.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Queer Collective podcast. I'm your host, Carbon.
And I'm Emily.
And I'm Bilal.
And welcome to the show.
Today we are joined by Bilal Ahmed, whose pronouns are he, they, and who identifies as a queer Muslim man-ish. Bilal,
love the ish.
Yeah.
Me too, yeah.
Bilal is a refugee from Dubai who has been living here in Canada for the past 5 years. They are one of the participants of our upcoming short film, Turning Heads Volume 2, ooh, little plug, where we explore queerness through makeup. So be sure to follow us on IG for updates on when that's coming out. Side note, but despite how many Muslim folks believe that being queer and Muslim is a contradiction, Bilal maintains a strong connection to Allah and had so many insightful thoughts to share during the filming and your interview that we knew we just needed to have you on this podcast to continue the conversation, because not enough will be able to be included in just the short film. Where we really want to start with this is the external Muslim world and coming out, so that overall experience. So I would really love it if you could provide our listeners with a general understanding of what it's like to be queer in a predominantly Muslim country like Saudi Arabia.
I was born in Saudi Arabia, and then when I was 4 years old, I moved to Dubai, which is in the United Arab Emirates, right? Which is just the country right next door. And even though a lot of people, especially in the West, think that like Dubai is kind of like the Vegas of Middle East, and in a lot of ways, it really truly is, right? Yeah. There's a lot of like luxury going on there and stuff. But at the end of the day, because it's still a Muslim city, there's a lot of cultural values that still stick around. And one of the very big ones are homophobia, right? So growing up in a city like Dubai, although there were a lot of fun times because of just how luxurious the city was, I really couldn't truly be my 100% authentic self without constantly fearing that like there was going to be some kind of danger to my life. Like I couldn't socially be my 100% self without constantly being like, okay, someone is about to do something or say something to like put me right on the spot and humiliate me, and it could go further than that as well. So it wasn't exactly very safe to be queer in a Muslim country like that. But with that being said, there were also a lot of happy moments, right? Because the people that I did meet who looked at me with like 100% acceptance, the same way they would look at someone who's straight, someone who's not a sinner, right? Those moments of happiness I really truly cherish to this day, right? Because I wasn't met with just tolerance, I was met with 100% acceptance. And when you feel 100% acceptance, no matter where you are, whether it's in an environment, in a country where you are loved and cherished by everybody, or whether you're in an environment or a country where you feel like at any moment you could face some kind of like threat, some kind of danger, you don't feel safe. When you feel that kind of acceptance, it's really truly a beautiful feeling. So it wasn't all bad is what I'm trying to get at. Yeah.
How much were you able to come out, and to who?
How I even kind of figured out that I was queer was back when like YouTube was huge, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with YouTubers like Troye Sivan, Oakley, Connor Franta, all of these YouTubers, they started coming out, right? And I would watch their videos, and they were super popular in Dubai during that time, and I would watch their videos and I would be like, oh shit, me too. Like that's me. The friends who I knew would also watch these YouTubers and were like, oh my god, they're so cool, like I really love them. I was like, okay, these are a safe space for me to be able to like go to and share these feelings with, right? And a lot of them that I did share these with met me with acceptance. They were like, that's awesome, I'm really happy for you. And I think this was when I was like 12, 13. I was just like a little boy, right? Even then, my friends and I knew that like it's not going to be easy. One thing that they all pointed out to me was that, Bilal, like I hope you can notice that like all of these YouTubers that you see coming out, none of them are in the Middle East, none of them are people of color, none of them are religious. They're all in the West, right? Where it's like not criminalized to be gay. So keeping that in mind, I wasn't exactly like in a safe enough space to be able to fully come out. It was just like people that I felt 100% safe enough coming out to. But even with that being said, like it's so hard to like fully hide who you are, right? Like there was only so much of like straight coding or
straight coding, straight masking.
Straight masking. Sorry, straight masking that I could do. There were people who like started picking up on it, right? Or there were rumors going around that like Bilal is gay, Bilal is queer, Bilal does this, Bilal does that.
And you're like, yeah, I'm really happy.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the only meaning of the word. What other meaning could there possibly be, right?
What's like the political and like policing kind of environment around it? Like, is it really if you're not too obvious about it, we won't care, or what?
Yeah, that's kind of how it is, where like as long as you do it behind closed doors, no one's really gonna say anything about it. But it also comes with the expectation that like when you go out into the world, into society, when you enter society, enter it being a cis straight person. There's no room for you to express your queerness or any other, different kind of identity that you might have besides what's considered the norm, especially if there's already like suspicions that you might be queer. Every single thing that you said or did was policed by everyone around you, right? If you're wearing something pink, it's like, dude, like, are you gay or something? That, and that would be my every single day, right? Where it was like majority of my closet is just like not colorful clothes. Forget jewelry. I wouldn't even like do skincare because I was so scared that it was considered something feminine and that it would like out me to people, right? Like that's just how deeply rooted it was within me, just from the fear of it all, that I avoided anything that was considered even remotely feminine or gay.
What outlook kind of does your family hold on queerness? And like, what was your experience like coming out to them?
Yeah. The only person in my family who like fully supports me, I would say, would be my mom. Even that was after like many conversations. And she comes from a different generation where she's been taught that this is something that's entirely wrong. It's taboo. It's a sin. And you go to hell if you're this person. And when she found out that her son was queer, she was just really concerned for me, my well-being.
Scared for your safety.
Exactly. My safety in this world and then also in the afterworld. People believe that you go to hell for being queer, right? So it took multiple conversations with my mom to like convince her that like, no, don't worry, like you can be queer and Muslim. I'm not gonna go to hell. You also don't have to worry about my safety as much in a country like Canada because it's not criminalized. But for the most part, my family does hold very like negative views on queerness, unfortunately.
Kind of speaking about those views, would you be able to share what the dominant outlooks on queerness is for most Muslims? Because I know while I was researching, there's a few different viewpoints on queerness, even just especially when we're just like thinking about the interpretation of the Quran.
So I would say that the dominant outlook is that like people focus a lot more so on like the specifics of what's written in the Quran itself rather than taking like what the Quran is trying to teach people. You are focusing on specifics that were for people that lived eons ago rather than focusing on like the general outlook, the general story that you're supposed to be learning.
I've heard kind of a mix. So I've seen like a few different videos. Like there's this popular like Jubilee one about like a few different, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's like a few different Muslim people.
Middle ground?
Yeah, middle ground, I think. And they're like asking different questions and you kind of get to see like different people's outlooks on things, which was kind of interesting. A few of them were like, I know queer people, I support queer people, but it's like, I feel like it's contradictory. Like you can't be both of them, but I still like support you as a person. I love you. There was one viewpoint like that. There wasn't anyone representing like you can be queer and Muslim on it, which I was like, it's sad that they missed out on that perspective.
Definitely.
But then there's some people where it's just like you have to pick one.
Honestly, the main story that everyone looks back at in the Quran is the story of like Sodom and Gomorrah and Prophet Lot. And basically it's a story about the Prophet went to this tribe of people to like, provide guidance to them, teach them about Islam, just spread the word of Allah, right? This was a very corrupt tribe of people. Anyone that would pass by the village, they were renowned to stop them along the way, kidnap them, rob them, torture them, rape them, murder them. And after lots of like attempts at trying to make them better people, to try to guide them to, towards a better direction, when it didn't work out, Allah sent 3 of his angels to kind of just like destroy the tribe. And there's many different interpretations of how the tribe was destroyed, but that's not what's important, right? The main point is that the tribe ended up getting destroyed. And in the Quran, it says that you should not act like the tribe of Sodom and Gomorrah, right? And a lot of people interpret it as don't be gay, which shocks me to my core.
Did it say they're having gay sex?
It was men, women, anyone who was stopping by, whether it was another man, another woman, rob them, torture them, rape them, murder them.
But it didn't say anything specific about gay sex.
No, like I guess raping them.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's like there's not even a specific about which gender.
They talk about like men raping men, right?
Okay.
Like that is something that's brought up in the Quran itself. But the point isn't the gender there,
I think the point is the rape.
How people interpreted that as don't be gay really confuses me. It's something that shocks me to this day. And like anytime I've had any kinds of debates, which I really thoroughly try my best to avoid, because everyone has their own interpretation, you know, like I don't want to get into it. But anytime I have in the past, it's always been like, no, but that's just what's in the Quran. And I'm like, okay, like, can you show me? And they would always just like point at that exact same story. But it's like, there's nothing specifically written there. Right? So how can you condemn a whole community of people and, you know, like abuse them and make them suffer so much because of this one line in the Quran that doesn't even talk about homosexuality. It talks about rape and how you shouldn't be raping other people.
I remember I dated someone who was Christian kind of early back on. And I remember them saying a very similar thing about the Bible as well. It's like there's nothing actually like in the commandments or anything like specific saying don't be gay. It's like a little bit in one story that it's like could be interpreted that way and people really hold on to it. Yeah.
Another point that people love making is, okay, well, like why wouldn't the Quran specifically say that it's okay to be queer then? So I don't know if you know this, but in Islam, in the Quran itself, they only speak about the stories of 25 prophets, right? And as far as I'm aware, there were over 124,000 prophets.
124,000 prophets?
Yes.
That's
and
a
they
lot.
that is a lot of prophets, right?
That's a lot of prophets.
And imagine how big the Quran would be if they spoke about the story of every single prophet that was out there. The point of why there are only 25 prophets mentioned is because the Quran talks about stories that are important for people to know, right? Like lessons that people should use as like a philosophy for their life to guide them. So the reason why it probably doesn't say anything about queerness is because
it wasn't relevant to like the lessons that they were trying to teach.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you know, like I don't see queer people as being like extremely problematic people where the Quran has to have like a story about them, because all we're trying to do is just live our life. We're just trying to exist, you know?
I mean, maybe if they saw how it all played out, maybe they would have included something. But I mean, on that note, I remember when we were filming Turning Heads, you shared your outlook on being queer and Muslim. I remember feeling like it was really beautiful, and I'm wondering if you can share that with the audience now.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah. So my perspective is basically that religion itself is something that's so spiritual. Islam is a religion that's very, very spiritual, and that comes to like your own personal being, right? Like your own interpretation of it. The Quran is a book that was revealed to us eons ago, right? And for a book that was revealed eons ago to be applicable to people from thousands of years going forward and be specific, it's almost impossible, right? Because the people that we are and the people that we were even 10, 15, 20 years ago are so different, right? And then think 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. So for a book to be revealed and for it to be specific and for the expectation to last that every single generation of people should follow these specific words, it's unrealistic as fuck. Which is why the Quran is a book that's very vague, right? And because, you know, Islam is such a spiritual religion, you should make your own interpretations from the book, right? You should read the book and you should learn your own lessons from it, apply it to your own life and be like, okay, this is what I'm getting from it, right? And this is how I want to live my life. This is the guidance that I'm taking from the book. Those specific texts apply to people that were there eons ago, right? And their lifestyle, their lives were so significantly different, right?
Yeah.
And
Coming down to even hygiene.
Yeah, exactly. So to like apply it to yourself in today's day and age, I find just a little ridiculous, but to each their own.
Well, I find it interesting that you still feel very strongly about your religion and being Muslim. And I know that for myself, like I grew up very Christian. I always went to Catholic school, and coming out in that experience really pushed me away from that religion and made me take a look and be like, well, if this community or this religion isn't going to support me or accept me or even tolerate me, then why even follow it? So I'm curious to know why you still feel so strongly about your religion and your faith and being Muslim.
Yeah, I'm so sorry you had that experience. And it's honestly really devastating how common that experience is, how like so many queer kids are raised religious. They're introduced to religion, but in a very like forced way, and in a very oppressive way, where when they grow up, they run away from religion, right? Because it's traumatic for them. And I totally understand. For me personally, like Islam has always been something that's been like super peaceful, you know, like as long as I can remember, just my connection to Allah has been something that's always brought me a lot of peace, right? Whether I was nervous or scared or angry or even happy, right? I always just spoke to Allah, and it added to the peace. The question was always like, why would God make me queer and not accept me for it?
Yeah.
If God is supposed to love all of his children so much, why would he make queer people and say that I hate them, or that it's a sin for them to be queer and they're going to go to hell for it if he loves all of his children? This is not a conclusion that I came to overnight, where I was like, yeah, there's no way that God would just like hate me for being queer, and like it's fine to be queer.
Yeah, people are constantly saying it at you. You start to feel like it's true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a constant internal battle where you're just like, should I leave religion to be queer, or should I try my best to not be queer and go to conversion therapy, or, you know, try it out with women, or try being as heteronormative as possible so that I can like pray the gay away or whatever. And there was a lot of struggles that came with it. But at the end of the day, I really loved my connection with Allah, and I really loved Islam so much that it was something that I was like, no, there's no way that I can leave that. But also, there's no way that I could live the rest of my life in just resentment for myself and also towards Islam then, right? Yeah. Because if I forced myself to be straight just because of my religion, inevitably, I was going to end up hating my religion for it. You can be both. It is A-okay to be both. And the Quran is read in Arabic predominantly. All around the world, people read the Quran in Arabic. There are so many people who read the Quran who don't even speak Arabic. They're just taught how to read it. I read the Quran. I finished the Quran. Alhamdulillah, like I'm very grateful that I read and finished the Quran, right? But I read a book in a language that I didn't speak or understand. I just knew how to read.
You don't speak Arabic?
I do not. No. I speak Urdu, right? Which is a Pakistani language. But I don't know how to read Urdu.
It's funny because...
Wait, you don't know how to read or write Urdu, but
Please don't
but you know how to read Arabic, but you
Wow.
speak... I am.
That's wild.
My background is also just so confusing, right? Because I was born in the Middle East. I was raised in the Middle East, but my parents are Pakistani, so I grew up speaking Urdu, not Arabic.
Right.
My brain is not mathing right now with it.
I feel you. Sometimes my own brain doesn't math.
What language do you dream in?
Oh my God.
I'm flirting with you.
English.
Yeah, you do?
Is it working?
In the film Turning Heads, I remember that you were talking about how Prophet Muhammad would wear eyeliner and how it was considered sacred or enhancing beauty. Can you speak more to that?
Wearing eyeliner is something that's considered sunnah in Islam. And sunnah is basically the acts of Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him. Any act that he did in Islam, if you follow that act, it's considered like a good deed to do, right?
Yeah.
And he really promoted wearing kohl.
As like eyeliner, like black.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think the direct translation of that in English is antimony. It's a specific kind of eyeliner, and it's supposed to be like good for your eyes, but also the Prophet found eyes really beautiful, and he said that wearing eyeliner further promotes the beauty of the eye. So men and women wore the eyeliner back then. Now you look around, and especially like Muslim men, they abhor the concept of wearing makeup, right? Because it's something that's like, it's haram, it's a sin, you should not be doing it, and it's gay, like I would never do that. And it's like, but if you let our Prophet himself, may peace be upon him, promoted wearing eyeliner, but you're not wearing it, but then that has nothing to do with Islam. You know, it's shocking how much people weaponize Islam to promote their own cultural agendas
And gender ideology.
yes, absolutely, that too.
Before we move forward, do you think we could do a little like glossary kind of dictionary moment for people who don't know all of the terms that go together? One I'm thinking is haram. Another one is kind of the difference between Islam and Muslim and how those are used sort of like somewhat interchangeably.
For sure. Halal.
Halal.
Yeah. I'm like, what else are we going to use?
I said alhamdulillah, which means thank God. Haram basically means that it's a sin, it's prohibited.
Okay.
So Islam, like Christianity, is the religion, and Muslim, like a Christian, is a believer of that religion.
Got it. And then Allah is God, of course. My next question for you is that in Judaism, there's the Reformed Jewish movement, and in Christianity, there are united churches and other churches that welcome in LGBTQ2S+ congregants. And one thing I found interesting is that despite there being queer Muslims, there hasn't been like a new subsect kind of created of the religion that welcomes in these folks, or even just like allies who feel and believe that way, that queer Muslims should exist and be included.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering why you might think that is, and if you think something like this might be on the horizon.
I think the main matter here is the subject of safety. I think it's very, very common in the Muslim community that if you are queer, it's just part of Muslim culture at this point, right? It's not even part of like Islam itself, at least in my belief, that if you are queer, you are automatically, just for a lack of a better word, excommunicated, you know, like you are exiled from the community. And being exiled is probably like the least of your concerns. It can go as much as like emotional, mental, physical abuse, right? People beating you, people stoning you to death. Like that's it's not unheard of to wake up and read the news and hear that someone quite literally got beheaded because they were outed for being gay, right? Sorry, trigger. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of queer people who do go to mosques and stuff, but they leave behind a very big piece of themselves, right? Which is their queerness. And there are over 1 billion Muslims in the world. You can't say that queer Muslims don't exist, right? We very much so exist. It's
statistically.
it's just because of our safety, we have to leave that piece of ourselves behind, or else there's a very big risk to our safety, our well-being. But also, like, I don't know if you've heard, but like, I think it originated in Toronto itself. It's called the Unity Mosque. And so these things are very much on the horizon. They celebrated Eid this year. There was like a prayer where people went and like they prayed together. They have like, I think they're starting to have like Friday prayers. Friday is kind of like our Sunday, how Sunday is for like Christians, right? There's a lot more of those things happening, especially in the last 4 or 5 years. It's grown a lot, which is really, really beautiful to see. I don't know if you're familiar with the Queer Muslim Network, but I think that itself only started like a couple years ago or so. But last year I was randomly scrolling through Instagram, right? It was my therapist actually who suggested this to me.
Shout out. Nice. Shout out to your therapist.
Marta, queen. But my therapist was like, Bilal, like, you seem like you feel really out of place right now. Because, you know, like the internal conflict, it's something that happens. It comes back in waves. And she was like, you seem like you're at a place in your life right now where you feel really conflicted and you feel really out of place. And I really suggest like finding other queer Muslim people. And I was like, holy shit. That's a thing.
That's a brand new thought.
Right? Like it's something that never even occurred to me because I spent so much of my life just thinking that like being queer Muslim is something that's a paradox. My therapist, I love her so much. Like she literally like did so much research for me and she's like, I found this queer Muslim network that sounds really, really interesting. Like you should like reach out and you should check out what they're up to. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, definitely. They were having like a chai and chat event at like a cafe in Toronto. And I was like, should I go? Should I not go? I was also just nervous because, you know, like I really didn't know what to expect from it. I really didn't know how I would be treated. I really didn't know on what side I would be leaning towards, or if I would be too queer or too Muslim to feel like I belong there. Right? I was just scared because it's such a foreign new concept to me. We went and oh my God, you guys, it was it was such a beautiful experience. It literally felt like fireworks. Sitting in a circle with other queer Muslim people. Okay. I have a lot of straight Muslim friends who are very supportive of me, right? Who are very accepting of me. But let's say if I'm like having a conversation with them where I'm just like, yeah, I went on a date and like it went really, really well and I'm very, very happy. I would never receive something like mashallah. Mashallah means like, wow, that's amazing. Like praise to God. It's usually just like, oh, good for you. I'm happy for you. But if there was like a straight person telling them, oh, I went out on a date with this guy and he's like a really cool guy and stuff, it would be mashallah. I'm so happy for you. And it was so deeply rooted, internalized within myself that if I had any kind of queer joy, I would never be like, mashallah. I would never be like, alhamdulillah, like thank God. I would never be like, inshallah, which means God willing, right? It was so deeply rooted within me that I was like, I should just like, I guess, keep the two separate.
It never felt like anything you do would be like,
it's like anything queer God. Related isn't from God.
Yes, exactly. That's just how deeply rooted it was within me, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, going back to the subject, I'm sitting in the circle full of queer Muslim people, right? Yeah. Another person is talking about their partner. They're in a queer relationship, right? And another person outwardly goes, mashallah, that's awesome. Guys, like goosebumps, you know, like literal fireworks hearing that. And I was like, oh my God, I had no idea this was possible. You know, like it was a very healing moment. It healed a part of me that I didn't even know was possible to heal, that required healing. You know, it was such a beautiful feeling. And it was also just lovely to just like sit with other queer Muslims and just speak about our experiences and just be like, oh my God, like we can exist, you know, and we can exist in happiness, in joy, in pure joy. And we can have these these beautiful moments together where we're not worried that someone is gonna say something that's rooted in hatred or oppression or anything like that. We're just 100% being our authentic selves. So to answer your question, like these things are definitely on the horizon in countries where it's not criminalized to be queer. The challenge is just to like make it happen in countries where it is criminalized, where people can be punished to death for it, right?
Yeah. Well, what you experience is beautiful, and I'm so happy that you got to experience it. And I really hope that more people get to experience that. That must be like a really precious moment for you.
It really truly was, yeah.
On the note of what can exist, have heard a lot that queer Muslim women, specifically wearing a hijab, cannot exist together. What are your thoughts on that? Have you experienced differently?
I'm not a woman, right? I've never identified as a woman, and so I've never had those experiences. But like as a queer Muslim myself, I see zero connection relationship between being a queer Muslim and wearing a hijab. And I really don't mean to speak on behalf of women and their experiences and why they wear the hijab, but just based on like things that I've learned from my friends who do wear the hijab. It's because they feel a closer connection to God, to Allah. People wear the hijab for different reasons. A lot of women wear it to be more modest, but the main reason why they wear it is because it makes them feel closer to Allah. It makes them feel like they're connected to something that's bigger than just themselves. That outlook has always confused me.
The next piece I want to chat about is kind of, I guess, integrating into the broader queer community in Canada. And I think kind of on the note of like the hostile history of most religions with queerness, I find that most queer culture is very secular. And I'm wondering if you find this to be true, and if so, how it's impacted your ability to engage with other queer people.
Yeah, definitely. It is very true that, you know, queer culture is secular, and like who can blame anybody for that, right? Like the amount of trauma that religion has caused onto queer people. I don't blame the queer culture for being mostly secular, but I do believe that it's very important to differentiate between the trauma that was caused by the religion itself or the followers of that religion. And it's not fair for queer people to look at religious queer people any differently. And I get it, the religion itself caused a lot of damage, but these people didn't, right? And these people are also queer. These people also have had some very similar experiences to you. We're supposed to be a community at the end of the day, right? So to be treated any differently, like queer people face so much oppression from straight people. Why is it that queer Muslims face something kind of similar from queer people who don't have religious values, right? When we're all supposed to be one community, we're all supposed to be you know, in unity. A lot of it has to do with not just my religion, but also my race, right? And also my culture, and also where I come from, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm very used to like, as soon as I like enter a bar or like any social setting where it's like, ooh, like you look exotic, like, you know, like tell me more about yourself. And like, you know, a big part of my identity is that I'm queer and I'm a Muslim, right? And the follow-up question is like, ooh, Muslim, isn't it like not allowed to be like queer in your religion? Like very invasive questions right off the bat. And you can just tell by the tone that like their intentions aren't, you know, to like
understand.
It's more so just to like make a mockery of the fact that you think you can be both, because that's not a thing, but it very much so is. Right?
And they're literally doing what hateful Muslim people do to you. So it is that parallel that you were showing.
Okay, thank you. Like, that's what I was trying to get at.
That's almost literally what I was hearing some Muslim people say on the internet. You know, it's very much an equal parallel.
I was told that like, you know, Canada or the West in general for queer people is like a very safe haven. And I thought that like as soon as I would enter a queer community here, I would be welcomed with open arms, right? But the experience has been very different. I feel like in secular queer communities, a lot of the times the reaction, especially if they're white queer communities, the reaction that I get is, okay, you're queer and love that. Okay. But at the same time, you're also a Muslim. And at the same time, you're also an immigrant, and you're also a person of color, et cetera, et cetera. So like you can do your own thing, but just like do it in your own space.
We were just having a conversation in the last episode about bisexuality erasure. There's like such an exclusivity when it comes to bisexuality as well. People are like, oh, you're not gay enough, you're not straight enough, you're like not sure where you fit in, you're too straight passing, or are you just going to leave me for a man if you're dating a woman? But the themes of these conversations, both in this one and the last one, is that lack of inclusivity. And as a queer community, we're always talking about how we need more people on board. It's like, everybody get on board, support the community. Yet at the same time, we're excluding members of the community. That makes no sense to me.
The queer Muslim liberation also leads to queer liberation. You know, like at the end of the day, we're all one community.
Absolutely.
Like queer Muslim liberation also leads to the liberation of a lot of other marginalized minorities, right? Like, for example, the patriarchy is something that's huge. Well, the patriarchy is something that's huge worldwide, you know?
Yeah.
But in a lot of Muslim countries, it's very, very big. We have these straight Muslim men who sit on a pedestal and make all of the decisions and make all of the rules. And there's all of these other marginalized minorities that are treated like absolute shit. You look around you and it's like, okay, if their existence is normalized, why is other people's existences also not normalized? Why is it not fine for us to exist, right?
Yeah.
Our liberation leads to the liberation of so many other people.
Yeah. Well, it's giving the same energy that like TERF gives. Yeah, women's rights, but not you. Not you women, us women.
Yeah.
And I think that if you want support, you got to give support.
Yeah. You also face oppression. You also
From the
face
same oppressor.
Exactly. Yes. So why is it that we can't just like try to make liberation happen together because we're stronger together? I didn't mean to hint that like I haven't felt any acceptance at all here in Canada. I have felt a lot of acceptance, you know, and like the lack thereof has made whatever acceptance that I have felt here all the more precious to me, right? It's just that in queer circles, if it's a predominantly white queer space full of white men, it's not going to happen for me.
Honestly, it doesn't hit for me either.
Yeah. And you don't have to sugarcoat it. Like both things can be true.
Again, I don't mean to take away from like the oppression that white queer men face in society as well.
But it is different.
Yes.
It's different. It's very different.
Significantly.
Different.
Yeah.
The world sees their whiteness before it sees their queerness.
Yeah.
At least in my experience, you know, the world sees your whiteness and you have more advantages in our society. Why don't you use that to help other people?
Yeah.
One thing I want to say around that too is I don't want it to be like a self-fulfilling prophecy of saying like white gay men suck, because I think you don't have to suck. I mean, there's a lot of white gay men I've met who are lovely and who are great and who are great allies.
Who don't suck.
And support the queer community. And what I want to say is like, especially if you're a white gay man and you're listening to this right now, is like, well, maybe take it upon yourself to not be a bystander next time. If you see something like this happening, support this person or make them feel extra included as well. I think that's something you can do.
What is your favorite teaching from the Quran?
I guess it's a lesson that's taught to Muslims to follow through the Quran, through Islam, is Ramadan, right? Which is the first time that we met, which is basically a month where Muslims fast, and from sunrise to sunset, there is no water, there is no food. You can't get to access your daily luxuries in life. And it's to feel for the people who have never had that to begin with. I think it's just such a beautiful concept, right? It's very humbling. And like every single Ramadan, every single year, I feel all the more spiritually connected to Allah, to my religion, to Islam. And also I feel so humbled. A lot of people speak about it that during Ramadan, you actually get to somewhat experience it yourself and be like, wow, like I went through 16 hours today without food and water and it was killing me. I can't even imagine what it's like for people who's this is their whole life. It's something that I'm very grateful for, and it's also something that I don't really notice in a lot of other religions, at least to that extent, you know?
If there's anyone listening who is struggling with bringing the two parts of their identity together, their queerness and their Muslim identity, I'm wondering if you have any advice for that person.
Absolutely. I'm just gonna look here.
Yeah.
Hello, baby. I love you. Okay, I just want to start with that. And you know, I'm gonna talk as if I'm talking to my own 12, 13-year-old self. I love you so much. Your existence is so valid. You deserve to be whoever you want to be, whether it's just queer, whether it's just Muslim, whether it's queer and Muslim, as long as it's who you choose to be. I just want to sit here and show you that it's totally possible to be both. And if you do choose to be both, I suggest do your own research. Don't listen to what other people are telling you, especially if what they're saying is rooted in hate and not love. Hang in there. Please don't give up. And I want you to know that there is so much love out there in the world that you are still yet to experience, that you never even thought or imagined you will be experiencing. So stay strong. I love you.
That's so beautiful. I love it.
You know, I was literally healing my inner child there. Thank you. Thank you for letting me do that.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
And I know you brought a quote with you. So
Yes.
I'm wondering if you have a message that you want to leave people with as well.
Yes,
The broader
absolutely.
audience.
I would love to. I really didn't want to take any texts or sayings from the Quran or from Islam, just because, you know, a lot of homophobic people in Islam love focusing on specific texts and highlighting them. And, you know, if I did the exact same thing, it wouldn't really make me any different than them. And it would be an endless cycle, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But there's just this one saying that our Prophet, peace be upon him, said, and this is for the listeners who are Muslim, and I just want to say it to them. So this is what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which means peace be upon him, said, none of you have faith until they love for their sibling in humanity what they love for themselves, you know, and that applies to everybody, right? That doesn't just apply to other Muslims. That doesn't just apply to other straight people. That doesn't just apply to people who just do good deeds, which impossible. That applies to sinners as well, right? That applies to people who are different from you, queer, like what have you, right?
Yeah.
You have to love everybody. You have to want for everybody what you want for yourself, right?
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful quote, and I wish more people followed it. So to any Muslim listeners, that's what I have for you. And for any queer people that are listening, especially if they're not queer Muslims, safety for queer Muslims is a very, very, very important subject. It's a very important issue. And if you are in a spot where you are able to offer them a safer space, please do so. And ask them what you are able to do for them.
I love that.
Thank you so much. And I hope that all religious people, I think a similar quote can be found in almost all religious texts, is like, love thy neighbor, like love people the way you love yourself, is like, it's a good way to live by.
Yes. And also, if anybody would want to reach out to me, learn more about being a queer Muslim, if they need any kind of support, if they have any questions, please, if you could please plug my Instagram there.
Absolutely.
I'm very open to conversations. And and also very important remark, if anyone says that I have said something that might be offensive or ignorant and would like to have a peaceful conversation where we could both learn something and grow from it, I'm very open to it.
That is everything that we have for today's episode. And if you like the episode, make sure you leave a like and subscribe, because we come out with these episodes bi-weekly. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast app, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review, because it really does help this podcast out. And if you have an HR job that you want to hook Bilal up with, please reach out via the Instagram.
They're looking.
I'm also single, so looking in a lot of ways.
Plug.
I love it.
That's everything that we have for you today. And until next time, peace.